Well, we've reached the field of Gettysburg. We're on the outskirts. You can hear the guns firing. It's July the 1st. Early in the morning, the Confederate brigades are now beginning to appear along this line. They're beginning to deploy, and in front of them, about a mile down the road, is Buford's cavalry, 2,000 cavalrymen. And there's going to be a delay here. Early this morning, John Reynolds' corps from the Union Army has been marching toward the battlefield, followed by Howard's corps. Not that there was going to be a battle here from the point of view of the Union commander, who's now George Meade. Meade's attitude, his idea, is to fight a defensive battle at Pipe Creek, 15 miles south of here. And all he's doing, allowing Reynolds to come up here, is merely to feel the enemy, not to engage the enemy. Once Reynolds feels the enemy, he's to back up, retreat slowly in the front of what Meade expects to be an advance toward Washington, which he'll meet at Pipe Creek. That's his plan, that's his idea. John Reynolds, however, is one of the few Union generals up to this point in the war that has his own initiative, his own attitudes, and he ignores that essential command, and he decides when he gets up here to engage the enemy. And he does that because it seems like the Confederates are not getting very far pushing against Buford, and that encourages Reynolds. That makes him think that he's got enough time to get up here and get himself deployed with his corps and battle. That's exactly what General Lee wanted the Union Army to do. The reason the battle is developing slowly is because General Lee is trying to get the Union Army to come up here and come out here as far west of Gettysburg as possible, in these rolling hills of countryside where he could fight them. Now, he's willing to fight him out here because his plan has Ewell's corps getting into position over there where the sun is. So that once these two lines become engaged here in front of us, and they're grappling, about noon, two divisions of Ewell's corps is going to appear, and it'll turn out to be this. You got a long line here. It's fighting, it's engaged. It cannot disengage because the men are grappling, the men are fighting. You can't just back out because the men that you're fighting with won't let you. So in that configuration, if a force appears on your flank and toward your rear, you not only now have to fight what's in front of you, but you have to resist what's coming against your flank. And this idea goes all the way back to Frederick the Great. It's called the sweep of the dragon's wings. And this is the tactic, this is the strategy that General Lee had developed. His idea is to crush it like that, and it works. By around 2:30 in the afternoon, we're going to find that the Union Army, these two corps, are totally shattered. And the soldiers are running pell-mell backward toward the southeast through the streets of Gettysburg, which is down that road that we see in front of us. All right, we're at Willoughby Run is behind us. This is McPherson's Ridge. It's in front of us here. You can see the cupola of the Lutheran Seminary on Seminary Ridge. That's about another mile, 3/4 of a mile. This is where Buford set up his position here. There are 3 divisions, Confederate infantry coming up this road. This is Hill's Corps. Heth's division is in the lead. Pender's division is behind him. And way back at the Cashtown Gap, about 6-7 miles, is Anderson's division. Heth's division is going to deploy. It's going to exchange skirmish fire with Buford for about an hour, hour and a half. And then from the south, John Reynolds is going to appear from this direction. And the infantry is going to become engaged. And we now have the beginning of a battle, of a general battle involving 2 entire armies. It's going to emerge over the next few hours. Heth and Reynolds, they go back and forth. They have local victories on each side. There's advances and pushbacks. Over here on the left flank, there's a railroad that runs through Gettysburg. Has a very deep cut. That's a scene of heavy fighting, as well as over here on the right flank in these woods. Around 10:30, 11:30 a.m., Howard is coming up, and he's coming into contact with Rhodes' division of Ewell's Corps, and then Early's division, which is coming up from the direction of the sun. All right, we'll push forward to Seminary Ridge. Now, the Confederate deployment didn't start well. Archer and David's brigades of Heth's division were met by the Iron Brigade. And that's the 6th Wisconsin, 7th Wisconsin, Meredith's division. There's Pennsylvania troops, Michigan troops. The struggles in these woods. The Confederate Brigadier General Archer is captured. Much of his brigade is captured. And the Confederates are pushed back a bit. But then more Confederate infantry arrive, outnumber the Union forces that are here, and push them back. This is James Pettigrew's regiment that came up here about 11 o'clock and deployed in these woods back here before moving. Eventually, on the 3rd day, Pettigrew would lead North Carolina troops up to the stone wall on Cemetery Ridge. This is the 19th Indiana Regiment. Came into being and was present at 2nd Manassas and went through all the battles down to the surrender at Appomattox. This is where the battle raged between Reynolds, Heth, and then Pender through the morning hours. Eventually, when more Confederate troops get up, this Union line is pushed back into those trees, over the ridge, over Seminary Ridge, and back toward Gettysburg. Now we're on the north side of the Gettysburg Pipe. This is the side that Davis's brigade encountered New York troops and Pennsylvania troops, while Archer's brigade was fighting on the other side. And this bridge goes over the railroad cut. This is the 147th New York Regiment. This regiment fought at Chancellorsville, Mine Run, Wilderness, Spotsylvania, North Anna, Cold Harbor, Petersburg, Weldon Railroad. Now this is the direction that Rhodes' division of Ewell's Corps is coming into the fight. Now we're looking in the direction of the Union line down there at that railroad cut, and Rhodes is behind me coming into the thing. Early is off to Rhodes' left, and when the Union line collapses and starts heading for Gettysburg, these two divisions are going to go forward as fast as they can. Now when they get in toward Gettysburg, they're going to encounter Cemetery Hill. We're on Seminary Ridge in the Lutheran Cemetery, in the Lutheran Seminary. John Reynolds, before he was killed, was supposed to have gone up into that cupola up there, looked out to the west. Then he got on his horse and rode into those woods we've just come from and was killed almost instantly. Later, the Confederates occupied this ridge, poured through these buildings, and moved on into Gettysburg as the Union front collapsed. This is the only existing evidence of correspondence that passed between General Lee and Richard Ewell after June 25th. It's dated the morning of the 28th. It's written in the hand, if you can read it. I doubt it, but at least it gives you an idea. It's written in the hand of Charles Venable. He's a staff member of General Lee. And what it says is, General, I wrote you last night that Hooker is reported to have crossed the Potomac and is advancing by way of Middleton. I directed you in that letter to move your forces to this point. If you have not already done so, come in the direction of Gettysburg. I think it best to keep on the east side of the mountain. Your trains and heavy artillery you can send, if you think proper, on the road to Chambersburg. But if the roads are good, they had better follow you. Now, it's hard to get this thing into evidence, ladies and gentlemen, because it's written in Venable's hand, but we don't know when he wrote it. Did General Lee dictate this to him? Did some third person tell him this is what General Lee wanted him to write down? Did he hear about this through scuttlebutt in the staff headquarters? Did he write it down a month later, a year later, after the war? We just don't know. He tells us it's a, quote, sketch from memory, unquote, which means we don't have the exact language. And you can readily appreciate that this language is confusing, and it's going to be, apparently, the implication for why Johnson's division did not march on the Arntsville Road to get to Gettysburg today.